Hello and good morning. This is Jamie with Stonemaier Games. As usual, today is July 15th, and I'm here for the next hour to discuss random topics, to share Stonemaier Games news, and to answer any questions that you have. And as usual, this will be available on YouTube afterwards. So if you're watching this not live, go over to YouTube, maybe watch it there, or ask questions there if you have any questions to contribute, because that's where I get notifications for questions in the future. So as usual, Pendulum is still the big news at Stonemaier Games. At this point, we've revealed everything that's in this box, so I can actually open it up and show you whatever I want. You've probably seen it in the Pendulum Facebook group. If you're not there, feel free to join. We've shared all the rule books, all the components, and there are also playthrough videos and even some how-to-play videos and unboxing videos that show you what's in the box. I won't take everything out of the box, but I can kind of show you the what everything looks like in the insert here. There we go. This isn't quite everything in the game, but this is a lot of the stuff that's in the game, all the cards sorted. Yes, there is room for sleeved cards. That's always something that I ask Pan to consider. Kind of a big well for all the player components, the 3 different timers, the legendary achievement tokens, some other player tokens here, another well here for extra stuff, maybe expansion stuff if we ever do an expansion. All the 56 different province cards, the different asymmetric cards that come with each of the characters, and some Automa components here, and player reference cards in here. And of course, we have the various player mats, the different character mats here. There's the special Automa mat, which we just revealed yesterday. There's a mat just for solo play, and the council board, the little tile that you can use if you want to play without the timers. There is a timeless version of this game. It's still turnless, but it doesn't use the real-time element of the timers. And the game boards and the rule books here. I guess I'll leave it out in case any of you want me to hold up something specifically, but that's all the stuff that is in Pendulum. And I just realized I am not speaking into my mic, so hopefully you've been hearing me for the last few minutes. It's been off to the side. That should be better now, in case you couldn't hear me too well before. Jer says he's been missing the chocolate of the day. What is my chocolate of the day today? Oh, we did order. We've been good about not ordering too many treats recently, but we did pick up some the other day. Some at Whole Foods and then some at a local cookie store. So we got some. I got a s'mores themed cookie and a what was it? It was like a chocolate walnut cookie. So I might be having a little taste of each of those today. And I also got at Whole Foods. I got some chocolate covered pretzels that were really good too. So lots of maybe little nibbles of chocolate today. Kevin says, what was the reason for the fantasy theme? Well, at Stonemaier Games, we have 9 games so far, and I guess Charterstone veers into fantasy a little bit, but not traditional fantasy. And so I just wanted a fantasy theme. I thought it would be fun to add that to our portfolio. Miles says, which Pendulum character is my favorite? Let's see. I don't know, I usually play red, and so there are 2 characters. The colors in the game, the player colors, aren't associated with the characters, but there are some characters with a red theme. So there's Bulk the Champion has a red theme. Bulk the Warmonger does not. And then Drankir the Tyrant also kind of has a red theme. This is the one where you play as a dragon here, Ascension Dragon. So I would say one of those 2 would be my favorite, just based on the aesthetics of it. Joe says, is everything still on track for pre-orders to start on August 5th? Yeah, we pretty much committed to that at this point. However, based on the timing of the freight shipments, we probably won't start actually shipping things to most regions, in particular the US and Europe. I'm not sure about Australia and Canada yet. They might be ready a little bit earlier. But we won't actually start shipping anything until the following week, probably a week later. Which will actually be good for the fulfillment centers. I know sometimes it's fun to order and then get a shipping notice on the same day, which does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. But it's actually a lot more efficient for our fulfillment center to have a little bit of time after they collect the pre-orders to organize them, to sort them into batches that are the most efficient to ship out. Part of this is also related to the timing of when the freight shipments are actually scheduled to arrive. If that timing changes significantly, I may change the pre-order date because I don't really want to have much more than a week before when you place your order and when we'll start to ship them. But yeah, we're still on track to open the pre-orders on August 5th. Yeah. Christopher says, have I played Shogun? What are my thoughts of the Battle Tower? I have not played Shogun. I've played, what is the classic game with, it has a Spanish theme. I'm blanking on it right now. Marco Polo is coming to mind, but that's not even Spanish, I don't think. I have played a game with a dice tower, cube tower. I have also played Edge of Darkness that uses a cube tower or dice tower, cube tower in this instance. But no, I haven't played Shogun. I haven't played that. Rio Grande, no, I'm so close to it. One of you is going to say in the comments. I'll just scroll down and find out. Adam says, assuming Rodney will be posting a tutorial soon? Question mark. Rodney at Watch It Played does have Pendulum, and he is working on a video for it. He has a very busy schedule, but he has it scheduled sometime near the end of July, early August, before the pre-orders go live. Yeah. Jared says, do you look up to any game designers when you're starting out? Who might they be? I look up to almost every other game designer. I mean, there's so many incredible, talented game designers out there. I'm just in awe of the various innovations. That's why I do my YouTube channel. I have so much to learn from other game designers. Some of my favorite game designers are Uwe Rosenberg, Rob Daviau, and Alexander Pfister. Those are three of the names that I throw out quite a bit. But there are quite a few other, like Ryan Lockett. He's a multi-talented designer. He's incredible. Keith Matesha, he's incredible from Thunderworks. Just a lot of amazing designers. Yeah, there's so many, but those are a few that I definitely look up to. Cody says, can I confirm, deny if there are secrets for Pendulum that are not revealed? You know, I do love secrets and special reveals, but I think I've revealed everything that's in Pendulum at this point. I honestly don't think there's anything that I've been holding back. So I think you have all the information out there at this point that I know about it. Timotep says, do I know when Rodney's play? Oh, the same question as a second ago. Cooper says, do I have a favorite character? Yeah, actually just answered that with Miles a second ago. I'll go with the kind of the red themed characters, Drankir and Bulk. Chris says that Chris just got a cat the other day, and the name apparently is Socks, and she has been a blessing to the family already. That's great to hear, Chris. As those of you who are maybe new to this, I have two cats, and so I'm always excited when someone else gets a cat. It's a little risky. You never know what the cat's personality will be like. But Biddy and Walter on our end are doing well. Sam says, can I ask your reasons for not revealing prices ahead of time? Yeah. We found that if I reveal the price of the game, then retailers will immediately list it. Part of the reason I don't like that is oftentimes retailers do that with only partial information about the game. They don't know the retail release date or the SKU or even all the information about the game. And so they're putting it out there with only partial information for customers. Another part is that I like to have a level playing field. I like everyone to start out with that information at the exact same time on really the day that we open pre-orders. So it puts us on a level playing field with retailers. It puts them on a level playing field with us and other retailers. So I found in the past, if I reveal that too early, we start to see like a few retailers who will throw it up on their store, and others are like, oh, but we don't know everything yet, or we don't have that information. We weren't given that information. We didn't know, and they're playing catch up. So I like to, similar to why we have why I ask reviewers not to post their reviews about the game until a certain day. It puts all those reviewers on a level playing field, lets them reveal that information, reveal their opinions at the same time as other reviewers, and gives them ample time to compose those opinions and to have full information through multiple plays before they post them. Ephraim says, what are the official dimensions of the cards? Would sleeve cards fit in the inserts? Yes, they fit in the insert, and the official dimensions are on the Pendulum page. They're all listed next to each of the cards. Joshua says, have I considered two-player versions of your games? You know, a little bit. I mean, one of the core tenets of Stonemaier Games is that we publish games that play from at least 1 to 5 players. So as few as 1 players. Originally that was 2 players, but really now it's 1. And then up to at least 5 players, sometimes 6 or 7. So a 2-player only game doesn't really fit that core principle. That said, I do understand, especially as someone who's in a relationship and self-isolation, as many of us are, that it is nice to have games that only play with 2 players or are designed specifically for 2 players. So I'm not entirely closed to that, especially if it is a dual version of one of our existing games. However, I did poll people a while ago about which, if I did make something else in the Scythe world, if they would be more excited by a new game in the Scythe world that hit those core tenets, played from 1 to 5 players at least, or a Scythe duel. And people were much more excited about a new game, it seemed like, from those polls. I think the second place option was a Scythe duel version, but it was a pretty far second below a new Scythe game, or a new game in the Scythe world. Nathan says, are characters in Pendulum meant to be chosen randomly? If so, what process do you recommend for that? Well, let me see what the rulebook says about that. I believe, yes, I believe they are chosen randomly. Let's see. Each player randomly chooses a character and takes that character's player mat. So yeah, they are chosen randomly, but obviously, especially on your first few plays or even later plays, if you haven't played with a certain character, you could choose that character. And even when you get the character, if it's random, you get to choose what side it is. There's one side that's a little bit more advanced. That's stated here very clearly. Wanted to make that very clear that there's an advanced side, and then a slightly more basic side, but still asymmetric. So they're just shuffled up. The character mats are easily shuffleable. Nick says, I bought my father-in-law Wingspan for Christmas, and he has now played it over 200 times and recorded the data. That's awesome. I thought he might be good to playtest upcoming expansions. Would you consider it? Possibly, Nick. The way to become a playtester for one of our games is to sign up as an ambassador, which is free to do. It's different than our champion program, which is just a different program. Ambassadors are people who volunteer for Stonemaier Games to help out, moderating questions, answering questions on social media, playtesting, proofreading, things like that. It's on our website. But even among ambassadors, I send a test, a quiz, once every 1 or 2 years to determine who might actually be a really good playtester. I love that your father has played, or your father-in-law has played Wingspan a lot of times. Playing a game a lot of times does not necessarily make you good at giving feedback about that game. But it could be the chance for your father-in-law. So if he's interested in that, feel free to have him sign up as an ambassador. And I'll probably be sending out that playtester survey later this year. We do have a great batch of playtesters, so I don't really need more at this point, but I am always... I'm always interested in finding a few new people, because we do have a lot of different games and products and expansions that come out, and I like to get a variety of different opinions and thoughts about them. Amerigo, El Grande. So I was close with the Grande. Thank you, Kevin. El Grande, I have played Amerigo as well. We're talking about games that use cube towers. Yeah. Tim says, we bought and played Between Two Castles recently. That's awesome. Yeah, I love to hear that. Did you say that an expansion was in development? Yes. Yeah, this was revealed kind of quietly on our e-newsletter a few months ago, and you'll be able to track progress there if you follow our e-newsletter. So an expansion, yeah, is in the works for Between Two Castles. The one thing that I will say is that, as you say, I find it odd that it doesn't have a solo mode, and yes, the reason that Castles doesn't have a solo mode is that Morton, it was kind of one of these instances where Morton, the guy who runs Automa Factory that we work closely with, he needed a lot of time to figure it out. Between Two Castles is a game with a lot of interaction between the players on your left and your right, although there is a 2-player mode. And based on the schedule that I wanted to release the game, we would have had to bump that by 3 or 4 months to have a solo mode for it. So I decided against it. And so the expansion definitely will have a solo mode now that Morton has had plenty of time to think about it and come up with a robust solo Automa mode for Between Two Castles. The expansion will be more than just that, but that is part of the expansion. Jason Deere, Jason is from the Dice and Dragons YouTube channel, who they do have an advanced copy of Pendulum. He says, any chance of us seeing more from the worlds of Scythe and Pendulum, maybe an RPG? Definitely not an RPG, at least not from Stonemaier Games. That's something that I know so little about that I couldn't publish an RPG. But I think there is a chance of us seeing more in Scythe and Pendulum. I don't know yet. I mean, the game hasn't even come out yet. I love the world. We did start kind of from the world up when I reached out to the artist, so that it is a somewhat world first game. Although the designer designed it separately, and then we brought in the artist to design the world. So it is possible, but I don't know yet. We'll have to see how the game does. Alejandro asks a somewhat similar question. Ever thinking of designing a story-based RPG, kind of like Sword and Sorcery? I haven't played Sword and Sorcery, so I don't really know how that plays into RPG. When I hear RPG, what I consider an RPG or a role-playing game is a very free-flowing game where there is often a DM, a dungeon master who is presenting that story to players, and players interact very freely with that story, with some mechanical constraints, like D&D has, rules about combat and how monsters work, and sometimes a little more tactical nature to it as well. So sometimes I hear that term associated with board games, but I think if you take away that free-flowing story, that is such a core part of RPG that I would almost put that in a different category. That said, in that category of a more structured, not necessarily more structured narrative, but not having like players just tell out loud their own story and do whatever they want. That is something that I'm working on in a current game. Not that, just a more structured narrative where everything is in the game, all the written narrative is in the game itself. Levy also says, have I revealed the price of Pendulum yet? And I have not, and I won't until early August. Chad says, what are the positives and negatives about joining forces with another designer to design a game? It depends on the game. I mean, sometimes, so one of the negatives can be if you have a very strong personality or someone who has a very strong and firm vision for the game, they may not need to work with someone else, and they might end up working well with someone else. Another aspect is, usually in game design, I found that one person ends up doing a lot of the nitty-gritty work, like actually making the changes to the prototype and printing out and making the prototype. That's a lot of work in game design to actually make those changes. And you kind of need someone to be the decision maker with that, to say, okay, I'm actually deciding this and implementing it. And so sometimes I found this even with my co-founder, Alan. Originally, we kind of considered ourselves co-designers, but really Alan was more of a great playtester. He was very involved in the design process in terms of he would sit down and playtest the game and we would talk about it. But then I would take that, as I do with any playtest data now, I would take that, I would go through it, I would think about it, I would make decisions, I would implement it into the prototype, and I would make the prototype. So I think sometimes you got to figure out if you actually need a co-designer, or if you just need a really good, reliable playtester. One of the pros that I found is when I need someone to come in with new ideas and actually help me implement those ideas and playtest them. I found this for expansions to work in particular very well. And there is a game that will come out next year that I co-designed with someone else that was a very great collaborative process. And it was very balanced. I found it was very like I worked on the prototypes, but oftentimes when we got feedback from, say, other playtesters and whatnot, I would often send them to my co-designer first, and that person would look through them and implement and like tag the PDF with some of those changes. So it was very balanced. It was good to find that balance, and it worked out very well for that collaboration. So oftentimes when I need someone to like kind of constantly be a part of that process, that can be beneficial for me. Joshua says, are there any hidden Easter eggs in the artwork like in Tapestry and some of your other games? I believe so, but I don't know actually if I gave Robert too many instructions about that. I hope the St. Louis Arch is integrated into one of the province cards, but I actually can't remember if I asked him to do that. And also usually my cats end up in the game. I don't know if they're in the game either. I may have forgotten to tell Robert about that. Yeah. Joseph says, the Stonemaier games use map prices. Not currently, no. We experimented with that for around 3 or 4 months back in. MAP for those is minimum advertised price. And we experimented with a policy in those regards a couple years ago. It didn't work out, and so we stopped doing it. Graham says, what part of Virginia are you from? I grew up in Chesterfield, Virginia, which is just outside Richmond. Ronak says, Ronak, how do you think of game themes when designing games? Let's see. Part of it is if I do have a mechanical idea, then I just kind of brainstorm themes that make sense for that mechanism. Part of it is that I consume a lot of fiction. I watch some TV. I love movies. I read a lot. I read a lot of fiction every day. I read part of a novel. Right now, I'm still working through the Wheel of Time series, so I gain a lot of ideas from that. And I also gain some ideas from other games. Whenever a game captures my imagination, or art that I see online captures my imagination, that might branch into a theme as well. Chris says, what has been my favorite dish since going vegetarian? Actually, there are quite a few. I've discovered that there are quite a few delicious dishes that I can enjoy as a vegetarian. Not a vegan. I still love cheese and eggs and things like that, but vegetarian. And one of them has it kind of surprised me that I never thought I'd try before. But there's a burger place in St. Louis called Layla, and Layla has a lentil burger. Lentils aren't something that I really have ever enjoyed, um, but their lentil burger is so good. I highly recommend it. Whether you're a meat eater or a vegetarian, or a meat loving vegetarian like me, I highly recommend their lentil burger. And that's one of the best things that I've discovered, at least eating out. Eating in, I cooked chickpeas maybe a few months ago at this point. And I never really knew how to cook chickpeas, but I really liked the results. I dusted them with some salt and some pepper, some paprika, and baked them. And they had this really nice, crispy, satisfying texture to them that I really enjoyed. Levy says, "Will my open world game be set in the world of Pendulum?" No, it will not. No, it's in its own world. Mark says, "Will there someday be an expansion for viticulture?" I hope so. Yeah, we're kind of working on one. I don't know if it's going to work out at this point. We're still kind of in the early stages of design, but I definitely hope so. Jerry says, "Do I get overwhelmed by all the new games coming out?" He says, "I've only played 30% of my collection. I keep adding more. I guess I'm more of a collector at this point." Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed by it, but I'm fairly discerning in what I actually buy and play. There's so many games that I kind of have to have a filter there somewhere, but I love the amount of innovation, especially if a game seems special and unique and new. I'm happy to see it on the market, and I hope it finds an audience. As for the games that I haven't played myself, I have a specific shelf that's for that purpose, and I try not to let that shelf get too full. But I have a small shelf that has maybe 10 to 15 games on it right now that I want to play, that I need to play, that I haven't played yet. Jason says, "Thank you for recommending Downforce for family gaming a few weeks ago. Can I recommend any other family games that work for a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a pair of 42-year-old geezers?" Um, hmm. I'll look at other games on my collection here that might fit that mold. Right next to Downforce, I have Scotland Yard. But you have 4 players though, so you kind of have a lot of games that could open up for that. The Isle of Cats might be probably a little heavy for the 6-year-old, but it is a really beautiful, fun game. Sagrada could work well. Sagrada could work really well actually for that player count. That's very easy to get into, easy to understand. Might be a starting point there. Sagrada could be a good one. Scotland Yard, maybe Isle of Cats. Yeah. I realize I haven't really talked about my topics list, so let me jump in real quick and go over some random things that I've been talking about. I played Libertalia the other day on Board Game Arena, one of my old favorite games I haven't played in a long time, and it inspired me to do a pirate-themed top 10 this week. So my top 10 video this Sunday will be about my top 10 favorite pirate-themed games. Top 10 video this past week was about Board Game Arena, which has been the main platform for me to host game nights and play games on during the pandemic, other than in person with Megan. I did a blog about wood components versus plastic components in board games. You might have some preconceived notions about which is better, especially for the environment. So if you do, I'd highly recommend checking out that post on the Stonemaier Games blog. I had some great chats recently with Jim Gamer. He goes by Gamer on Instagram, and William at Hungry Reviews. We had some chats that I think both are live at this point. If you want to check out those posts. They're a little hard to find on our website, but if you search for them on Google, you'll probably have them come up. And right now, what I'm listening to, sometimes I like to mention what I'm listening to. I have a few different podcasts queued up. One is the Board Game Design Lab, the post about designing majorities-based games. I have another one from Board Game Design Lab, designing and publishing small box games with Rachel Blask. They do the Mint Tin box games. I have a podcast called Sanctimonious, which is about Keyforge, queued up. And I'm also listening to Revisionist History right now, the Malcolm Gladwell podcast. I have some more topics, but I'll come back just so I don't lose any of these questions. Let's see. Sherry says, "I created a game and have had 1,000 beta testers." That's awesome, Sherry. What's my next step? After blind playtesting? At that point, if you think the game is ready, this is the time for you to decide if you want to publish the game, if you want to self-publish it. In which case, go to my Kickstarter Lessons blog and get started. If not, if you want to have someone else publish it, Look for publishers that you love that publish games that are kind of similar to what you created and reach out to them, or don't reach out to them. First, go to their website, see what their submission process is, and if it's open, and submit your game to them and see what they think about it. See if they're open to publishing it. Congratulations on 1,000 beta testers, so that's awesome. Jason says, when I want to learn the start of a new game, where do I start? Do I look for a watch it played video or go straight to the rulebook? Typically, I like to find a video about it, not necessarily watch it played. I more like to get kind of the general flow of the game from a video, and then I go and read the rulebook, if I am learning it myself. Jared says, can I speak to the somewhat frenetic appearance of Pendulum's gameplay in Quackalope's video? I thought someone actually commented on this really well in the Pendulum group. Two things. One, there are three guys playing on the same side of the table. I don't play games that way. I don't know if you play games that way. I would not recommend it, especially for a game like Pendulum. They're doing that for the video. Two is, instead of watching all three players, watch one of them, because you are going to be one person, not three people when you play Pendulum. One person is not all that frenetic. Yeah, you're going to be making some quick moves at times, but when you see like 6 different hands reaching in there and grabbing things and moving workers and flipping dice sand timers, it will seem a little frenetic. But when you put yourself in the position of one person, because only one person will be doing those things, it's really, trust me, from my experience, it is not a frenetic, stressful game. Otherwise, I would not have published it. Carol says, have I seen the new Call to Adventure Stormlight Archives? Yeah, I've seen it. I don't think I've seen it played yet. She says, beautiful art and very thematic as you try to fulfill your destiny to become a Radiant. Feel you will probably enjoy it as a Starlight fan. I've only played Call to Adventure once, and I really liked it. So I would definitely like to play it in this new theme, this new world from Brandon Sanderson. Patrick has a question about 5-player Wingspan, which he played yesterday. Everyone I introduced this game to seems to love it. As more and more birds come into the game, how do you think it's best to shuffle cards? I currently mush them together on the table. Two thoughts there. One is I usually I kind of just take a big stacks and shuffle them, and then mix them up and shuffle them. It takes about a minute to kind of shuffle the different stacks. However, when we come up with a new expansion, we're going to start to kind of recommend that that you don't even try to shuffle everything together, but maybe you take the core game cards and you choose one expansion, or you choose, if you have both expansions, you can choose just to play with the expansion cards, and essentially just use 2 decks of cards rather than all of them. I do understand in saying that it requires you to then sort out the cards after each play, which I wouldn't recommend doing that either. I would say, okay, we're going to play a few games with European and Oceania, and you shuffle those cards together, sort out those cards, shuffle them together, and then only use those cards for a few games, and then maybe sort them out and do something else. But really, I mean, for me, I will probably still continue to just shuffle everything together. It only takes a few minutes at the beginning to play. Philippe says, I recently did a video about my thoughts on the top 10 games on Board Game Geek. They're all pretty heavy games, nothing light in there. For you, what does that say about the ranking? I would say that maybe the types of people that rank games on Board Game Geek and rank them highly like heavier games. Yeah. But I think that also says that it, being a heavy game that is well rated does not necessarily mean that it is a best-selling game or that you need that type of game to be a best-selling game. There are plenty of games that are ranked much lower, or even just in the top 100 that are much lighter, that have sold many more copies than most of those games in the top 10. Miroslav says, not sure if this was asked, but why isn't Elizabeth Hargrave continuing Mariposas with Stonemaier Games? Elizabeth is an independent designer, and so it's really good for independent designers to work with a variety of publishers rather than being tied to one. So Elizabeth did run Mariposas by us. We played it a few times. I thought it was maybe a little light for Stonemaier, and I basically said, you know, we might be interested in publishing this, but we would need to add a little bit more of a sense of progression, add a little more weight to it. But I don't know if that's what you want from the game, Elizabeth. Is that what you want? And she said no. She said she wanted to keep it lighter, and I said awesome. And she had another publisher in mind for that. She ended up getting that publisher, AEG, and I think they're going to do a fantastic job with it. But designers aren't tied to specific publishers traditionally unless they are actually working for those companies. Like Eric Lang at CMON, he works as, I think, the head of design at CMON, and so all the games that he publishes are most likely going to be published through CMON. Peter says, what's my stance on games getting to be Target exclusives for the first month, like Jaws of the Lion and Pandemic Hot Zone North America? It constitutes a lot of guaranteed sales, but it seems to be angering some friendly local game store owners, especially in the case of Jaws of the Lion, since they were snatched up immediately by mostly the gaming crowd and not casual shoppers. I can see both sides of this. I don't love exclusives, and so it's not something that Stonemaier Games would do, but I do like at the very least that these companies are only exclusive for a short period of time and not the lifetime of these games. So it isn't. I hope game store owners remember that. Isaac at Cephalofair could have said this will always be only a Target game. Instead, he did open it up for direct sales from his company and for retailers. In fact, although he might have always had it open from his company. So I think that's a good start. Also, I think it's good to remember that early adopters, there's a much broader audience beyond just early adopters. Gloomhaven is a little odd in that instance because a lot of people already know what the game is. And so early adopters might constitute a more significant number of the people who eventually try the game. But similar to Kickstarter, like when game store owners used to get angry at Kickstarter because they said, they've taken all the audience. Like everyone who will ever want this game has already bought it on Kickstarter. We know that now for sure to not be true for any game that is going to be selling for a long time. At the same time, on the flip side, I can understand how they'd be frustrated. These game store owners want to sell, they want to make money, they want to sell games. Jaws of the Lion has been a big hit already, and I know they would rather be selling it right now rather than waiting for the exclusive period to be ending. So I can see that would be frustrating for them as well. Let me jump over to my topics real quick, then I'll be back for Tony's question in a second. Tony, hopefully I won't miss it. I have a few games behind me. I did a video about Ganesha yesterday. This is an Azul-like game that we played. Really beautiful game, very simple rules. I love when you can explain almost the entire game on the back of the box. We played this the other day, and then we actually got an itch to play Azul, so we played Azul Summer Pavilion. Also, Dan and Connie were so kind to send me a copy of Chai, and so I haven't, as you can see, I haven't opened it yet, haven't played it, but I am looking forward to playing Chai, and I really appreciate them sending it to me. So I'm looking forward to playing that. What else? I'm playing Rallyman GT later today on Board Game Arena. That'll be a game that I'll learn and play, and hopefully do a video about soon. And I'm also doing a playtest of a game of my own. You can kind of see it on the table over here, but you can't see any of the crucial components. I played another game of disc golf the other day with actually the designer of Honey Buzz. Paul Paul invited me to a game of disc golf. It's like frisbee golf, but with a different type of disc than a traditional frisbee. What else? I have a few other topics to cover, but just like little things like that. Yeah, I'll come back for the other stuff later. Tony's question is, we played Parks last night. I know in a video post you listed the time as a resource as one of your favorite aspects of the game. Yeah, the one-way worker placement time track. Was that one of the things that drew you to Pendulum, or was your appreciation of Parks stemming from the fact that you were in development of Pendulum at the time? Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, I love time as a resource. I loved Solkin. I love games with one-way time tracks. I love that idea of time as a resource. And so I think that's why I enjoy Parks and why I was open to publishing Pendulum originally, even though it had the timers. I was worried about the timers just like many of you were. But then I actually got to play it and realized, oh, this isn't a stressful, frenetic game for me when I play. And I love the use of time as a resource. If you don't already know, the way time is used in Pendulum is that you place a worker on a certain part, or you place workers on certain parts of the board. And then when the timer flips to the area that those workers are in, those workers are locked into place. They cannot move off those actions, so they're locked in. And the benefits they gain while they're there are proportional to how long the time is. So a worker that's stuck on a 45-second action is going to get a lesser benefit than a worker that is stuck on a 3-minute action. And this is not random. You are choosing to put a worker on like a 3-minute action. You're saying, I want that for my worker. I want that powerful benefit. I'm willing to wait to get it. That's how time is used in Pendulum. I know I just missed a question here, but I'm going to try to catch up. Jeremy says, when I get the Automa system from Morton, do I run it past the designer to make sure it fits their vision? Yeah, definitely. Is it a Stonemaier staple that the designer understands that comes with being a Stonemaier game? I think you're saying, do designers know about that, that we will add an Automa system and that the designer of the game probably won't be making it? And the answer to that is yes. Yeah, that goes in. That's the part of the original discussion. David says, do I think Pendulum, because of sand timers and real-time mechanisms, could easily expand to higher player counts? I do think it could. Yeah, it's actually why we put 4 plus on one side of the board, because I think 6 players probably could work on that side, but we need to test it to find out. David says, any more information about the Scythe rulebook? Still on pre-release for August 5th. Would this contain new art as well? No new art, no. I mean, we have, no, definitely no art in the new rulebook. And I'm still not 100% sure. I think it will arrive in time for that. It's on the same boat as Pendulum, but it is only the spiral-bound version that is there, not the hardcover version that will come later. So I don't know yet. I probably will. I probably will release it at the same time and just make it very clear to people that if you want the hardcover version, that it will come later and that it is in production. Joshua says, how do all the awards Wingspan has been racking up make you feel? Are you surprised by its success, or was it one of the games that when you knew you were capturing light in a bottle? I knew how much I enjoyed Wingspan, and I was hoping that hobby gamers would give it a chance. And they did, and I love that. So I have been pleasantly surprised by how widely it's been received and how much press it's gotten even outside the gaming industry. As for the awards, I don't really publish games or design games. I didn't design Wingspan, but I don't publish games for awards. It isn't a goal. It isn't something that we put on our boxes. That said, when there's another designer involved, it feels good for me for that designer to be recognized. And so I love that Elizabeth has gotten a lot of formal praise for Wingspan through these awards, through reviewers, things like that. That isn't a motivation for me, but it feels good to see that be good for someone else. Kyle says, now that Wingspan and Pendulum used fixed rounds as opposed to an organic end like your other games, has your opinion shifted on the best game and mechanism? I still prefer games without rounds. That said, there are certain games where rounds, I think, are appropriate, are better. In Pendulum, you need some breaks. You need some break from the real-time action to kind of collect yourself and move forward. And it is, I think, a better structure for determining how long the game will go than some of the earlier structures we tried with Pendulum. We tried more of a race format. It didn't work. Same thing with Wingspan. Wingspan was originally a race to play a certain number of cards, and it ended up feeling like a race. Instead of giving players time to see, okay, I have this number of turns, I know I will be able to use my engine because I have this number of turns to do it. Players were just trying to play cards as fast as possible. They didn't feel they had that engine building feel. So I think having a set number of rounds in Wingspan also worked really well. So universally, I don't think it's a universal rule that a game is better because it doesn't have rounds. But I try to, whenever possible, I try to remove rounds from a game that I'm working on to keep that flow, to keep turns going just one turn into another, to keep that natural flow so you're not, the game isn't feeling like a game, really. It's letting you stop remembering that there's a mechanism where you have to stop, or that where the game is telling you to stop. Instead, you're determining that. And you get to be caught up in the immersion flow of the game. But there are many exceptions to that. I will be doing a video about my favorite roundless games soon, though. David says, would I ever consider hiring another game developer full-time, i.e. Eric Lang? Eric Lang is more of a game designer than a game developer, but I get what you're saying. I know you do a lot of development, but didn't know if you could enjoy a developer enough to have them develop full-time for Stonemaier. Well, yeah, I do want to differentiate here, David. A developer in the game design industry is someone who takes a game that is already like 80% complete, and they then make it better. They make it more fun, more balanced, more intuitive. That's what I do for games that we publish that I don't design. There's also the design process, which is actually coming up with the idea, originally making the game, playtesting the game, turning it into a functional, somewhat fun game. So for both of those roles, I don't think we'd ever hire a full-time designer. Maybe a full-time developer, but we just don't make enough games that I think we would need that. We only make 1 or 2 games a year. We do plan years in the future, but I don't think we would need that full-time. It's actually technically Morton's job description. He's a developer for Stonemaier games, but Morton really just focuses on Automa at this point, and I'm happy for him to do that. Jordy says, is there more Scythe coming? I've said, I should make it clear that I am open to designing another game in the Scythe world. I'm not confirming that this is happening. I'm just open to it happening in the future. Adrian says, for your daily updates on Pendulum, do you write those weeks or months in advance or the week of? Oh, I write it on the morning of. Like as you see those design diaries go live, I've written them 10 minutes before that. So I don't really, I kind of have a list of topics of things that I think I will talk about, and then I look at that list, and on the morning of, I pick one of those topics and I write about it. Yeah. Jordy says, am I thinking about a big box for Wingspan and expansions? We have started to think about it a little bit. I think it's something that we'll do someday, but it's only after we know that everything and all the expansions will fit into it and can be organized really nicely in the box that we will make it. So it might be years before we actually come out with that box. Yeah. Wayne says, do I think the high production quality of your games leads to less counterfeiting? Do I have any tips on trying to spot counterfeit games? Honestly, they've gotten really good, unfortunately. I did not think that our games would be counterfeitable because of the components we put in them, but there is a counterfeit version of Wingspan that we have seen on some Chinese markets, and we saw it show up on Amazon.co.uk the other day from a seller based in China, I think probably tied to the source of it. Um, and I mean, they did they have the insert in it. They have eggs that look pretty close to the eggs in the real game. There are very slight differences, but there are differences. The actually one way that you can tell pretty easily if you have the game is you can look at the corner cuts of the cards. Their corner cuts were wrong if you compare them to the real Wingspan cards. They even have the real barcode on the game. So it if you didn't really know to look for very specific things like certain icons they left off the box or certain finishes, which you wouldn't really know until you actually bought it, it's really hard to tell. So I think what this will mean is that it'll lead to more people buying directly from the publisher so they know they're getting a legitimate copy of the game, which is unfortunate because there are a lot of legitimate sellers out there who are selling real versions of the game. Yeah. Max says, did your girlfriend make you go vegetarian? No, absolutely not. We don't have that type of relationship where we make each other do things. Megan did open my eyes to the option of going vegetarian. She isn't even vegetarian herself. She is more pescatarian, though she eats mostly vegetarian. But she opened my eyes to some of the benefits of it. Also, some friends who really aren't vegetarian at all watched a documentary on Netflix about it. And that was kind of the turning point for me where I said, I've started to go this route, but now I can see the benefits of not just doing it half-heartedly, not going vegetarian sometimes, but going vegetarian all the time. And I actually have not had my cholesterol read since then. I need to do that because I want to see something quantifiable to indicate if there has been like a very specific health benefit. Because my cholesterol was not great before that, and so I have recordings before, and now I can do some after to see if there has been a positive difference. Thiago says, I am always asking for indications or things to watch, read, or play. So here's one. And that's the end of the comment. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know what the answer is, Thiago. Maybe it's further down in the comments. Joshua says, what was the first thing that made you say, okay, I want to design a game of my own? Honestly, it was when I was 7 years old, and I played, I think, chess at that point, and then I played Monopoly, and I was like, oh, this is different and new. And I know saying that now as an adult and knowing what Monopoly really is and very different impression, but as a 7-year-old, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I want to design a game like this. And so I designed a medieval version of Monopoly when I was 7. Let's see. Since I don't see any questions right now, I will talk about my remaining topics, which weren't big. I watched 2 good movies this past weekend, both on Hulu, I believe. Or maybe, no, one was on Amazon Prime. Troop Zero was on Amazon Prime. Really good, kind of heartwarming movie about essentially a Girl Scout troop. And in a very poor area. The poverty of the area is very crucial to the movie. And Palm Springs, which is a time loop romantic comedy movie on Hulu that just came out, and it was awesome. If you love romantic comedies and or time loop movies like Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, I highly recommend Palm Springs. What else did we play? Yeah, I mentioned that we played Azul Summer Pavilion. I played the Hobbit version of Love Letter, which was gifted to me very generously by Xiang, a Stonemeyer ambassador. And what else? I think that's pretty much all the random topics I was going to cover today. Oh, I made a really good dill soup this past weekend from scratch using some white beans, a lot of dill, some garlic. Yeah, just I love dill. I love dill pickles, and it kind of has the dill flavor, but in soup form. Tomer says, is there any new game that already came out or supposed to come out soon that you are looking forward to playing? I have a few on my shelf that I could mention right now that I'm definitely looking forward to playing. Chai, that I mentioned behind me, Chai, I'm looking forward to playing that. I have The Search for Planet X, I'm looking forward to playing that, and I haven't played High Rise yet. I'm looking forward to playing that. And today on Board Game Arena, I'm playing Rallyman GT, which I think is fairly new, definitely new to me, and I'm looking forward to playing that for the first time. Cynthia has a nice reminder. Cynthia from MapleSource has a good reminder that that anyone here, if you have any questions for Travis, the designer of Pendulum, you can join him over Zoom during the virtual version of Gen Con. And she puts a link here in the comments that you can check out. If you're watching this on YouTube later, just head over to the Facebook page. You can see this link. Okay, Tim says, I finally won against my wife in viticulture with the Tuscany expansion after changing up my strategy. We got Wingspan in the mail and I'm learning it. I heard you mention a strategy before that sounded helpful. I can't remember your tip though. What are my tips for Wingspan? I generally try to play brown birds with, when activated, brown abilities early in the game because they're going to be activated a lot over the course of the game. My initial strategy, I think for many people, is to choose my initial food and cards so that I can play one or two birds right away at the beginning of the game. Those are the main things. Yeah, yeah. Those are the main two things I do in Wingspan. Other than that, it heavily depends on the birds and the goals. Oh, Thiago. Okay, here we go. He says he thinks I'll love the new PS4 game Ghost of Tsushima. It's a history about a samurai that has to forego his honor to defend his land against an honorless foreign invader. And there's a game mechanism called guiding winds that's genius. The wind blows in the direction you have to go instead of something pointing it out for the immersion not to be broken. Oh, that's brilliant for a video game, especially like an open. It sounds like a fairly open video game, or oh, that's awesome. Instead of like an arrow on the screen pointing you to go here, the wind blows that way so you can see, oh, I can follow that visual cue. Oh, that's really cool. I want to check that out. Ghosts of Tsushima. I think that would be very difficult to work in a tabletop game without like breaking the immersion to show that it's happening, but that's really cool. There's a little bit of that in my open world game, like hints to say, go this way. But the thing that I love about an open world game is even if the game hints at you to go this way, sometimes it can be even more fun to say, I'm not going to take that hint. I'm going to go that way instead. And my game allows you to do that. Tyler says, have I read the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab? I have not. He says, I love the idea of parallel worlds with different levels of magic in them and dig the stylized cover art. Would love to see what sort of game would come from that world. I will check it out. I haven't heard of Shades of Magic. I am stuck in the Wheel of Time series for a while now, or I will be, but eventually I'll get back to other books. Sa says, do I have anything about the MSRP for Pendulum? I do know the MSRP for Pendulum, but you will know it in early August. And don't worry, it's really, especially if you pre-order from us, it's not going to be that expensive. I took cost very much into my thought, and like for any game, but especially for this game, because I want people to give it a chance. I think this is a game where you really need to play it to experience how much fun it is, and play it a couple times. So it is a cost-effective game, I would say. Tim says he got Arboriculture and Formaggio from the print-on-demand versions of those expansions for viticulture. There's no place for the Mafia expansion of viticulture, is there? You can print it from our website. We have the files available there. But it was perhaps the worst received expansion from the original Tuscany box. So you can try it if you want, but I don't think it'll go over all that well. Ivan says, how is the digital version of Tapestry going? I am still waiting to get the official contract back on that. So I don't think it's been moving along very quickly, but I will, I won't do emails while I'm live, but I will make a note about that. So not great, but it is moving forward for Board Game Arena, so we should see it there in a few months. I may just have to find another developer, honestly. The developer is taking a long time to even just sign the contract, which is never a good sign if they can't correspond that quickly. Hopefully it'll work out, though. We'll see. Moving Meeple says, what's on my shirt? Yeah, a friend of mine opened a restaurant years ago called the Peach Tortilla in Austin, Texas. I've had the pleasure of eating there, and it is really delicious, and I like the shirt, so I wear it from time to time. Cody says, have I thought about backing the Brandon Sanderson deluxe leather-bound War of Kings books on Kickstarter? Yeah, he has an amazingly very well a Kickstarter that's going very well right now. Let's see how Cody, maybe you can tell me the funding level. Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter. Let's see how it's going. It's not coming up right away. Someone might have to tell me, but the last time I checked, which was like on the first day, it was at 4 million already. But no, I don't plan on backing it. I'm not really a collector. I buy books on my Kindle, so I do buy books, but I buy them on the Kindle because that's how I read them, and then I want them in my Kindle. I don't want them really on my shelf. There are rare exceptions to that. I do love Brandon Sanderson, so he might be considered someday for a rare exception for that. But no, I would say, and you said, does environmental friendliness play into this at all? It probably should, but if I really wanted something like a beautiful, beautiful board game, beautiful book, that might sway me over the environmental impact a little bit in rare situations. Steven says, I recently learned both Tzolk'in and Teotihuacan on Board Game Arena. He says, I know you love Tzolk'in, but Steven says he loves Teotihuacan. What's your thoughts on that one? I've only played it once, and honestly, I want to give it another try on Board Game Arena. I tried it once in real person, in real life. I had a great teacher. I had a good experience. But as I was playing, I was like, oh, I'd rather just be playing Tzolk'in because I love that so much more. So I need to try that. Same thing with Tech Henu. I want to try it. It looks even heavier. It looks like they've kind of gotten heavier and heavier and heavier, which isn't my preference. I like kind of a good solid medium weight game, and I think Tzolk'in's at the upper edge of that, but I'm okay with that. But they seem to, the Teotihuacan and Tech Henu seem a little bit heavier. But I do want to try it because I do love that designer. Yeah, based on Tzolk'in, I'm always willing to try something from that designer. I think it's Taskini, maybe is the designer. Suhaib says, how old am I? I'm 39 years old. Josh says, why is Scythe not available on the App Store in Florida? It's not just in Florida, it's all in the US. I thought it was available on iOS in the US, but I was wrong. It's only available in the UK and maybe Canada, but not in the US yet. I think they're aiming for August for that. So I had that wrong in my e-newsletter. Let's see. Carol says, thanks for recommending Hanami Koji so many times. I do love Hanami Koji. Can you play online? Does Hanami Koji have an online version? And I'd love to be able to play that online from time to time. Wade says, are there any fun tidbits on the expansion? Not yet, but after Pendulum, we will do some fun tidbits about the Tapestry expansion. Joe says, which disc golf course did you play? We played at Wilmore Park in St. Louis. Sarah says, Sarah also asked about the Way of Kings 10th anniversary edition, and the books look crazy awesome. They do. I mean, they look incredible. I'm not a backer, although I might try to be a backer for the novella, unless I can get that novella in some other way later on my Kindle, because that's where I would prefer to read it. I do need to look into that though, because I think I do love anything that Brandon Sanderson writes, so I need to make a note about that. If you don't know what we're talking about here, Brandon Sanderson is an amazing author, amazing fantasy author who is writing an epic series called the Stormlight series. Stormlight Archives, Chronicles, something like that. Stormlight, look up Stormlight. Starts with The Way of Kings. If you love fantasy books, I highly, highly recommend checking it out. And he has a Kickstarter right now, which probably is not the best way to get into the series because it's for people who already love it and want like collector's edition stuff from The Way of Kings. But you can check out the books without backing that Kickstarter because they're available everywhere. Allie says, which titles do I think will win the Spiel and Kennerspiel prize? So I don't know much about the Spiel. I don't remember the entries, but I know that the Kennerspiel is The Crew, Cartographers, and King's Dilemma. I haven't played King's Dilemma. I haven't played The Crew, but I know what it is. I know what both of those are, and I play Cartographers a lot. I love Cartographers. I think The Crew will win based on what I've seen from the Kennerspiel in the past. They have been going a little bit heavier over the years, so I love that they even considered the King's Dilemma, which is not necessarily all that heavy, but just unique and different. I would love if they chose Cartographers, but I haven't played The Crew either. I need to play The Crew and see how much I enjoy it. My guess is that they're going to go with The Crew, though. Raphael says, have I played Pendulum solo? And no, I have not played Pendulum solo. I mostly just play multiplayer. almost all only multiplayer. Cody says, do I have any pictures or previews of the hardcover version of the Scythe rulebook? I don't know. I only have the paperback version. It's in my closet back there. But I haven't actually seen the hardcover version in person yet. I am eager to get that copy. Actually, he says, not sure I've ever seen anything Panda has done in hardcover, and you may actually have. The Scythe art book was printed by Panda. The art book that we publish and release is something that is printed by Panda, and they do a great job with it. Panda actually started out. I think when they bought the factory, they had book binding equipment in that factory, and so they've been able to bind books for years now. Cody says, do I have any references of what it might look like? Yeah, look at the Scythe art book and kind of look at the. I put it on video in the past, what the paperback, the spiral bound version will look like. It'll look almost exactly like that, but hardcover. Kaz from the Dice Odyssey says, have I tried the Back to the Future board game that came out recently? I have not. I need to because I love time travel, but I haven't tried that yet. Anthony asked for details on the Tapestry expansion. Not yet, Anthony. Just a little bit more time. After Pendulum, I'll talk about it. Kaz also said, any word on when the Scythe digital game is coming out on mobile in America? What I've heard from Asmodee Digital is August. Dan had a similar question here. Kaz says he's still waiting for a Scythe movie to happen. I would love for a Scythe movie to happen. That's a Jakob thing. He has the rights to the Scythe world, the 1920 plus world, but I will be happy if and when that happens. Let's see. Joe says, I've noticed that when you work with other designers, they tend to be new designers. Is that intentional? Would I consider working with any more well-known designers? I would. He mentions Alexander Pfister here, Stefan Feld. I am open to it. The thing I talked about a little bit earlier on the video is I think sometimes it can be problematic unless you have clearly defined roles and even a clear lead designer, and someone who, if the lead designer truly does respect the other person's opinions and throws a lot of stuff their way so that the lead designer isn't overburdened in terms of time spent. But I think ultimately you do need someone to end up making a decision and implementing it. And I think that can be tricky when you have two very experienced designers working together because they both might want to be that person. I'm amazed that Rob Daviau and Matt Leacock have found a way to work so well together. And I wonder if in the end that if Rob is a little bit more of the story guy and mechanical, I mean, Rob does great mechanisms too, but in the end, Matt Leacock, I wonder if he is the one that ultimately makes the decisions and implements them. I'm curious. I've heard a little bit about the way they work in Google Docs, so I'm not sure if that's actually true. But I think you just need to, with experienced designers, sometimes you might end up with two people trying to do the same thing. Kaz says, have I ever seen the show Grimm? It's about fairy tale creatures hiding in plain sight living among us. I have not seen that. No. George says, have I done any rock climbing lately? I wish. No. I mean, that was one of my main activities leading up to the pandemic, and then I had to stop because the gym closed. The gym did reopen, but still not entirely comfortable going there. Really, I do not go places with other people hardly at all anymore, and especially not places where I need to touch a lot of things that other people are touching. I think they have done some good safety measures. You are required to wear a mask while you rock climb there, and obviously you just need to keep your hands away from your body and away from your face when you do it, and wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. But that's tough. That's really tough. So I haven't. Tom says, have I seen The Shivers on Kickstarter? I have seen it. He said his wife saw it and made me back it instantly. It looks really cool. I wish it was priced a little bit lower for me to give it a try. I think the core price was $65, maybe even plus shipping. I get why they needed to charge that much, or at least I think I get why. But that was what held me back from being an Instabacker, because it does look awesome. It's kind of like a pop-up book game with some really cool interactions where you're kind of really touching the components of the game and interacting with them. So I do want to try it. I will probably end up backing it, but we'll see about that. Nathan mentioned that the video game Sumer on Switch Steam is a real-time worker placement game, kind of like Pendulum. I saw that post in the Pendulum group. Nathan, thank you for sharing that. I need to check it out. Carol says, did I sign up for any Gen Con events since it's online? I'm on a couple panels, but I haven't signed up as a participant for anything online yet. She says she's going to learn to play Tzolk'in on Board Game Arena. Oh, that's actually clever that you could use that time to learn games. Yeah, that's actually really really clever. I might need to give that a try if there's especially if there's a board game on Board Game Arena. Krista says, "Are any of your games going to be on Board Game Arena?" Other than Tapestry, I sent them an email actually about Rolling Realms. I would love, I don't see a reply yet, but I would love Rolling Realms to end up there. I think that would be a good format for it. And I would love for other of our games to end up there as well. They're tied up in digital rights though with other companies though, so it might be a little difficult to do that. Roberto says that he saw my post about the use of plastic pieces versus wood. How about to try everything in plastic materials, like the main board, the player board? This would avoid deterioration by moisture on rainy places. I haven't seen that for all the components. I have seen plastic cards be used in games like Two Rooms and a Boom, and that's more for durability reasons. They didn't want people to be able to tear the cards. But you're right, it would probably warp less too. I haven't seen that done for player mats or boards. Eddie says, I think I have what I think are good ideas for board games, but I don't have the knowledge or skill to develop them. Are there people that would listen to a pitch? Probably not, Eddie. I mean, any game designer has hundreds of ideas that they are excited to work on. The true test is them finding the time and actually putting through the work to execute those ideas. So I think your best bet is maybe to find a local friend who is a game designer or who is excited to be a game designer and wants to put in the work, because the game design is just like this part of all the work that goes into making a game design. So I think you kind of have to come to terms with the idea that nothing will happen with the idea unless you do something about it, or if you bring in someone else who is willing to do a lot of the work and you also decide to do a lot more work than just have an idea. Yeah. I know that's the harsh truth there. I have a blog entry about this if you want to check it out, called "Your Idea is Brilliant, Your Idea is Worthless." You can check that out on the StonemeyerGames.com blog. Cody says currently the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter is funding at $5.4 million. That's awesome. Ken says, "Can I share any more information on the Wingspan expansion?" Not yet. No, that'll be in a few more months after the Tapestry expansion. Chad says, "Am I hooked now on disc golf?" I'm kind of hooked. Yeah, I do wish courses were a little bit closer to me. It was a bit of a drive for me to get there. And honestly, my hand hurts a little bit after playing. So something I definitely can't do every day, maybe not even every week, but I think I will be doing it on a little bit more regular basis, especially until I can get back to indoor rock climbing. Krista says that Yukata has Hanami Koji. Oh, awesome. That's awesome to know, Krista. Thank you. Jenny says, "What's my favorite restaurant in St. Louis?" I love a lot of restaurants in St. Louis. It would be really hard for me to narrow down just one, but if you name a type of food that you love, I can name my favorite restaurant in that category of cuisine. Let's see. I'll answer a few more questions. It is a little past 11 here, so I'll wrap it up in a second here. Jonathan says, "Have I heard of a new concept for dual layered player mats called debossing? It's being featured in Mind Clash's new game, Perseverance. Looks really interesting, and they also use Panda." I didn't know they were doing something different with that, so I will check that out. I have seen that campaign. That's an example of a game that's probably too heavy for me. Player mats. I'll check that out. Yeah, thank you. Aaron says, "How come Scythe is typically out of stock on most of the major online sellers?" I think because they discount them and sell quickly. But it's almost always available on Amazon. Are the smaller guys going to get restocked? Well, so we do have a distributor. We sell to one specific distributor who sells mostly to Amazon and other online retailers, but not online hobby retailers. And that distributor is very good at keeping things in stock because they order stuff from us in advance on a regular basis. And so if Miniature Market and Cool Stuff came to me on a regular basis in advance and said, "Hey, we want this, we want you to make this for us," I would definitely make it for them. But we have another distributor that is good at doing that, and they put a lot of their stuff on Amazon. Also, I think there are a lot of Amazon third-party vendors that we don't sell to. They buy from other distributors who buy in bulk, and they sell on Amazon. Tim says, "Will Rolling Realms have a physical release?" I think we're leaning towards doing that. Yeah, I think there's a much better possibility than I originally intended. There was no actual possibility at the beginning, but yeah, a little bit more now. Jonathan says, "Debossing is the new technology he talked about for Perseverance." He said the deboss boards will peel and warp less. We can keep the thickness of the double boards reasonable, and the cavities will suit both the... Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds awesome. I need to check that out. Yeah, learn more about that. And thank you, Cody, for finding that link as usual. Mahir actually mentioned the DeBoss boards as well. Yeah, and I did not know about this. I'll have to check it out. Panda hasn't mentioned it to me. Michael says Sonora is a flick and write game that lets you play into 4 different play areas. Made me think a little of your Rolling Realms in a good way. I saw Tom Vassell had a review about it. I didn't look too deeply into that, but I need to check it out. Kevin says, if I had to choose an alternate theme for Wingspan, what would it be? For me, it would probably be dragons, or like big fantasy birds that like humans could fly on. One of those two things. And that is the last question. Good timing here. Thank you all for joining me today and for putting up for me for getting the mic in the first few minutes. If you have any additional questions, I'll put this up on YouTube and you can post it there, and I'm happy to answer them at any point into the future. Take care and have a great week. Bye.